My parents raised us to snitch out of love, molding my siblings into little spies. The night I witnessed what they did to my youngest sister, I grabbed her and fled, never glancing back. 6 months later, they were arrested while attempting to foster more children. Growing up, my parents rewarded me and my siblings for one thing alone: tattling on each other. As the middle child of 4, I was the kind of kid who faded into the background, easy to overlook. But I noticed things the others didn't. While my parents believed they had us all under their thumb, they were wrong about me. My older brother Nate, for instance, would have sold his soul for our father's approval. Once, when we were alone in my room, I accidentally spilled a single drop of cranberry juice on the beige carpet. Panic froze me like a deer in headlights. I tore off my shirt, spat on it, and scrubbed furiously at the stain. Nate was halfway down the stairs before he even processed what had happened. "Neil just dumped his juice all over the floor upstairs," he announced. "He's such a klutz." I didn't catch the rest of his words. Just the unmistakable thud of my father's boots crossing the room, the creak of a drawer, and the slick whisper of the black leather whip sliding free. I didn't move. Just lay face down on my bed, pillow crammed in my mouth to stifle my screams. 1, 2, 3. They skipped my dinner that night. As I sobbed into my sheets for hours, I could hear Nate downstairs being lavished with praise. "You're so mature, my handsome boy," Mom crooned, her pride radiating through the house. "I'm proud of you," Dad boomed. I was 4 years old then. Nate was 6. That same year, our twin sisters were born, and suddenly I was raised not just by parents, but by 5 unblinking surveillance cameras. The twins received the same treatment Nate and I had endured. For their first 3 years, my parents played the doting guardians. Then, overnight, affection vanished. No kind words, no hugs, nothing. Unless they did one thing: snitch. By age 10, I'd been beaten more times than I could tally, for failing to clean my room perfectly, leaving crumbs on my plate, crying too loud, or wearing clothes that hinted at bruises. My siblings, though, were rarely punished. From all that pain, I'd learned one lesson: I'd never subject them to it. Even when I caught them misbehaving, I stayed silent. Sometimes, I even claimed their mistakes as my own. In a way, it worked. Nate and the twins trusted me most, but they never protected me in return, not once, because they loved our parents more than they loved me. Over time, it became obvious I was the one bearing the brunt of the punishment. Yet no one saw it as kindness or decency. They labeled me the problem child. Nothing I did was ever enough. If my snoring annoyed a sibling, my mattress vanished for a week. If I accidentally used Nate's cologne instead of mine, I was banned from showers for 3 days. By the time I turned 18, my understanding of family had warped into something unrecognizable. Watching TV shows with loving parents or siblings would send me into a quiet fury, convinced those scenes were lies scripted to mock me. Survival had consumed my entire childhood, leaving no room for grades or dreams. When college applications loomed, my GPA hovered at a dismal 1.0. But one truth burned brighter than any report card: I couldn't stay in that house another minute. The day I left, I bribed a classmate with cash I'd scraped together from under-the-table jobs just to sleep on the floor of his dorm. That first Thanksgiving, when his parents visited, terror clawed at my ribs for days. I rehearsed every gesture, every word, the way my parents had drilled into me: perfect, silent, useful. When they knocked twice instead of once, I flinched but opened the door, eyes squeezed shut, muscles coiled for a blow. Instead, his mother hugged me. "Thank you for letting us in so quickly," she said, her voice warm. I spent the evening rigid, waiting for the inevitable punishment: a spilled drink, a misplaced smile. But it never came. After they left, my trauma conjured a hallucination. My friends screaming, calling me worthless, broken. But reality was worse in its kindness. He hugged me. "Thanks for being cool with them," he said. That moment cracked something open in me. My parents weren't strict. They were monsters. The next morning, my twin sister Kayla called. Her voice was a thread of air, barely audible. "Please help me. I'm sorry," she breathed before the line died. I drove to the house that same hour, fists white on the wheel. When I found her, she lifted her shirt to reveal a stomach mottled with bruises. They'd replaced me with her. I cleaned her wounds as she sobbed apologies, but I felt no anger, only grief. All my rage was reserved for our parents. My friend Thomas, to his credit, didn't hesitate. He helped me carve out a hiding spot for Kayla behind his desk, draping blankets to shield her during dorm inspections. We smuggled cafeteria sandwiches and apples, whispering like conspirators. For the first time, Kayla slept without jerking awake at every creak. But the calm shattered the next day. My phone erupted with calls. First, my mother's saccharine pleas. "Neil, sweetheart, have you seen Kayla? We're so worried," she cooed, her tone dripping with venom. I deleted the voicemails. Then my father's voice, a guttural roar. "Bring her back now!" I blocked them. When my brother Mason called, his charm felt like a spider's web. "Hey, little bro, Mom and Dad are freaking out. Just tell us she's safe, okay? No one's mad." His words slithered, familiar and hollow. I hung up. They'd trained him well, but this time, I wasn't their puppet. For a heartbeat, I almost believed Mason. Almost. But I'd spent a lifetime studying his performances, the way he mirrored our parents' words like a polished ventriloquist's dummy. This was no exception. Kayla, meanwhile, lived in a constant tremor of fear. Every creak in the hallway sent her scrambling under blankets. She refused to step outside, not even to glimpse sunlight on the quad. At night, she slept coiled into herself, fists clenched, as if her own body were a shield. "What if they call the police?" she whispered one evening, her voice frayed. "What if they say you kidnapped me?" The question froze my blood. Legally, she was still 15. I could be charged, jailed. But sending her back? Unthinkable. I'd scrubbed the blood from her sheets. I'd seen the fingerprints on her ribs. "We'll figure it out," I vowed, though the promise tasted hollow. The next day, Thomas cornered me while Kayla showered, the sound of water masking his urgency. "My RA's sniffing around," he hissed. "Suspicious about unauthorized occupants. You guys need to bounce." I nodded, my throat tight. We had $37 in my wallet and nowhere to run. My part-time job at the campus cafe barely covered ramen and peanut butter. That night, as Kayla twitched in restless sleep, I mapped escape routes on my phone, my mind a storm of what-ifs. One truth anchored me. I'd die before letting them touch her again. The next morning, I became a beggar. I haunted dorm lobbies, classrooms, the library, pleading with near strangers for shelter. Most recoiled, eyes darting as if my desperation were contagious. "My sister needs a place, just for a while." Blank stares, awkward shrugs. Then salvation. Melissa from Psych 101. We'd exchanged exactly 3 words before that day, but she lingered after lecture. "There's a storage room," she offered. "Off campus. My roommates won't care." It was a closet, really. Damp, smelling of mothballs with a single bare bulb. But when I showed Kayla, she wept. We moved her that weekend. Thomas hauled the cracked plastic bin holding her life. Thrift store sweaters, a frayed copy of The Hobbit, the dollar store first aid kit. Melissa's roommates, Alexis and Victoria, greeted us with coffee and zero interrogation. "Family's trash sometimes," Victoria shrugged, handing Kayla a spare key. For the first time, my sister unclenched. I crashed on Thomas's floor still, but dawn to dusk, I was at the apartment. Kayla bloomed in the margins, tutoring Melissa in algebra, sketching on scrap paper, laughing at Alexis's terrible puns. I doubled my cafe shifts, serving overpriced lattes to frat boys while Kayla stashed tips in a sock under her mattress. We were a hair above drowning, but we were alive. Then Mason found us. I was wrist-deep in steamed milk when I felt the air shift, looked up. There he stood, pristine in that stupid puffer jacket, his smile a scalpel. "Hey, little brother," he drawled, like we were debating pizza toppings, not her life. My fingers gripped the counter, ice flooding my veins. He'd always been our parents' favorite weapon, now reloaded, aimed straight at us. "Can we talk?" Mason's tone was all faux concern, but his eyes glinted like polished knives. I glanced at my manager, who flicked a dismissive hand toward the break area. Untying my apron, I led Mason to a corner booth, its vinyl seats cracked and sticky with old syrup. "What do you want?" I hissed, venom sharp on my tongue. Mason sighed, the sound rehearsed, and leaned back as if we were discussing a minor squabble. "You're pissed. I get it. But this Kayla stunt? It's gone nuclear. Mom and Dad are losing it." "Good," I snapped. "Let them choke on it. Did you even see what they did to her? He shifted, his collar suddenly too tight. They said she was rebellious. You know how she… Bruises, Mason. My voice trembled. Finger marks on her ribs, because she didn't snitch on Cynthia. That sound like rebellious to you? They're our parents, he muttered, glancing at a nearby couple sipping lattes. They're strict, but they love us. They want what's best. A bitter laugh clawed its way out of me. Is that the script they gave you? Love doesn't leave scars. Love doesn't starve you for crying. His jaw tightened. You've always been a martyr, soaking up drama. I'm keeping her alive? I leaned in, the table digging into my forearms. She's 15, Mason. You want to play lawyer? Fine, tell them to call the cops. I'll show every bruise, every photo. Let the world see their parenting. For a flicker, his smirk wavered. Then he pivoted, smooth as always. Just let me talk to her. 5 minutes. No, I stood, chair screeching. We're done. His hand shot out, fingers vice-gripping my wrist. They know where you work, he breathed, low and lethal. They'll track her down. You can't run forever. I wrenched free, his touch lingering like a burn. Watch me. The moment my shift ended, I sprinted to Melissa's apartment, rain stinging my face. Bursting inside, I found Kayla on the couch and Cynthia perched beside her, knees pressed together, eyes swollen. Hi, Neil, she whispered, a ghost of our twins' voice. I froze. What are you doing here? Kayla leapt in. She came to check on me. She was worried. How'd you find us? I demanded, cutting her off. Cynthia stared at her chipped nail polish. I followed you. After class, I just wanted to know she was safe. A liar. The word hummed in my teeth. I dragged Kayla into her storage room refuge, the air thick with mothballs and dread. Did you tell her? No, her whisper cracked. She showed up, said she missed me. Through the half-open door, I watched Cynthia's thumbs fly over her phone, the screen's glow painting her face blue. It's a setup, I murmured. Mason cornered me. Now she's here. They're hunting you. Kayla's breath hitched. What do we do? Now, pack, quickly. As she stuffed clothes into her backpack, I returned to the living room. Cynthia stiffened, sliding her phone face down on the couch. Who are you texting? I bit out each word, the room narrowing to the device glowing between us. Just a friend, Cynthia blurted, her voice skidding a half octave too high. I tilted my head toward her phone, my pulse throbbing in my temples. Let me see. Why don't you trust me? Her attempt at indignation crumbled under the shake in her hands. Because you're lying. The words hung like a blade between us. Her face paled. They're worried, Neil, she pleaded. They just want her home. To beat her again? Hard pass. They've changed. Her nails dug into the couch cushions. They regret everything. For a sliver of a second, I wavered, until her phone buzzed, lighting up with a text. Mom, is she coming? Dad's waiting in the car. Ice flooded my veins. They were here. Get out? I stood, my voice low and jagged, a tone I'd learned from him. Cynthia scrambled for her coat, guilt and fear twisting her features. They'll find her, she hissed on her way out. You're just delaying the inevitable. The door slammed. I texted Melissa, stay away, then yanked Kayla toward the fire escape. We stumbled down rusted stairs as my father's sedan rolled into the apartment lot, its headlights slicing the dusk. The motel reeked of mildew and despair. Kayla sobbed into a scratchy pillow while I kept vigil at the window, each passing car a potential ambush. Why won't they stop? She whispered, her voice raw. Because we're proof, I said, though the answer felt hollow. Proof of their cruelty. Proof they couldn't bury. At dawn, I scoured the internet on the motel's wheezing Wi-Fi. Emancipation, evidence, court hearings. The words blurred. Kayla hovered over my shoulder, her breath shallow. What if they don't believe us? Before I could answer, my phone chimed. A photo of us dragging suitcases into the motel. Beneath it? Unknown number. Bring her home, or we call the cops. Kayla's knees buckled. They'll drag me back. No. I gripped her shoulders, my resolve hardening. Not while I'm breathing. We fled to the bus station, blending into the commuter crowd. Thomas agreed to hide us one last night, but his texts grew frantic. RA's doing checks. Hurry. Campus swarmed with danger. Near Thomas's dorm, a security guard chatted with a woman in a peacoat. Mom's peacoat. I veered Kayla toward the library, its fluorescent lights buzzing like a hive. On the third floor, we hunched between dusty philosophy stacks, Kayla clutching a book she never turned a page of. Melissa's voicemail greeted me. Victoria answered on the second ring. "Your folks came by," she said, voice tight. Melissa told them to screw off. They looked unhinged. By nightfall, we were ghosts again. Thomas's dorm was a trap. The motel, a crime scene. We holed up in a laundromat, fluorescent tubes flickering as dryers rattled like distant thunder. Kayla curled on a plastic chair, her sneakers brushing discarded detergent packets. I counted our cash, $18.75. "What now?" she murmured, her eyes glazed with exhaustion. I watched a lone sock spin in a dryer, going nowhere. We survive. The next morning, I jolted awake to an empty laundromat. Panic surged. Kayla, until I saw her through the grimy window, pacing the cracked sidewalk, phone pressed to her ear. When she slipped back inside, her face was a cipher. "Who was that?" I asked, voice taut. "Cynthia," she murmured. "She wants to meet. Just me." No, it's a trap. Kayla sank onto a plastic chair, the fluorescent lights bleaching her tired face. "What if it's not? She says she wants to help. She feels guilty." "She felt guilty last time," I snapped, "right before selling us out." "Mom and Dad are at work. She swears it's just a talk." Kayla's voice frayed with longing. I recognized that ache, the desperate hope that someone in this family might choose us. Reluctantly, I agreed, but only under my terms. A crowded campus cafe, eyes locked on her every second. Cynthia was already at a corner table, her hands clamped around a latte. Shadows bruised her eyes, her hoodie hung loose as if she'd shrunk. "Thanks for coming," she said, voice feather light. "I'm sorry, they made me do it yesterday." "Made you?" I didn't mask my skepticism. She glanced at Kayla, then away. "They said if I didn't help, they'd treat me like they treated you." The words curdled in the air. I wanted to rage, but her trembling jaw mirrored Kayla's. Fear was our family heirloom. "Why risk this now?" I asked. "They'll punish you." They don't know." She dug into her backpack, sliding an envelope across the table. Inside, $300 in crumpled bills. My birthday money, for Kayla. I stared. Generosity from a sibling felt like a foreign language. "There's more," she whispered, leaning in. "They're filing a runaway report tomorrow, telling the cops you brainwashed her, Neil, that you're unstable." Kayla's grip clamped my wrist under the table. Of course, our parents had spent years gaslighting the world about me. Why stop? "We need proof," I said, mind racing. "Photos, witnesses." "I took some," Kayla admitted softly. "The bruises, in case they faded." Pride flickered beneath my dread. She'd outthought us all. Cynthia chewed her lip. "I'll testify. Tell people what I've seen." "You'd defy them?" My voice cracked. She hesitated, then nodded. "I'm tired of being scared, of watching them destroy you." For the first time since we'd fled, something warm sparked in my chest. We weren't alone. Nin. As we stepped out of the cafe, my phone vibrated, a death knell in my pocket. The campus alert headline glared up at me. Safety notice, missing minor. The email reduced Kayla to a statistic. 15, brown hair, last seen with brother Neil Nguyen may require intervention, and turned every stranger into a potential snitch. "They're weaponizing the whole school against us," I hissed, shoving the screen at Kayla and Cynthia. Cynthia's hand flew to her mouth. They didn't even wait 24 hours. Panic slithered through me. Kayla's face would be on every dorm bulletin board, every security monitor. Hiding was impossible now. The laundromat, the motel, the library, all traps. "We have to stop running," I said, the words tasting like blood. "We fight." "How?" Kayla's voice trembled. Dr. Barnes's name surfaced. My psych professor, a silver-haired man who'd once offhandedly mentioned CPS cases during a lecture on trauma. I typed a frantic email, fingers slipping on sweat-slick keys. Urgent. Life or death. He replied in 3 minutes. My office, 3 p.m. Cynthia gripped my sleeve. I'm coming. They'll need proof. I wanted to refuse, but her resolve surprised me. 3 broken kids against a system. Maybe numbers mattered. We holed up in the library's basement, a tomb of forgotten periodicals. Every footstep overhead sent Kayla shrinking deeper into her hoodie. At 2:45, we slunk through service corridors, past dumpsters reeking of rot, until we reached the faculty building. Dr. Barnes's office was a cave of leather-bound books and stale coffee. He stood when we entered, his gaze lingering on Kayla's hunched posture. Neil, he said, locking the door. I saw the alert. Let's talk. For an hour, we unraveled our family's rot. Kayla's photos, purple blooms on her ribs, a lash mark across her thigh, glowed on his desk lamp. Cynthia confessed to the whip's crack echoing through walls, the way our parents dissected secrets like surgeons. Dr. Barnes listened, knuckles whitening around his pen. When we finished, he removed his glasses, pinching the bridge of his nose. This is systemic abuse. But you understand the optics? His voice softened. Taking Kayla without consent, it's given them ammunition. I couldn't let them kill her, I said, the words raw. I know. He leaned forward. We need CPS, today. But once I file, they'll interview your parents, inspect the home. Kayla? Will they make me go back? She hugged herself, a child again. Dr. Barnes hesitated. Temporary placement is possible, but the unspoken truth hung heavy. They're persuasive. They're respected. Who will the judge believe? Normally, yes, Dr. Barnes replied, and my lungs seized. But given the photographic evidence and severity of the allegations, we can push for emergency placement. He turned to Cynthia. For both of you, if you're willing to testify. Cynthia's breath hitched. My twin, Lila. What about her? We'll include her in the report, Dr. Barnes assured. For the first time, hope flickered, a fragile, almost painful light. What about Neil? Kayla pressed, her fingers knotting in her sleeves. They're saying he kidnapped me. Dr. Barnes's gaze darkened. Legally, Neil's an adult. He can't enter foster care, and removing a minor without consent. I could go to jail? The words clawed out of me. For saving her? Not if we act first. He leaned forward, palms flat on his desk. File the CPS report. Present yourselves voluntarily. Control the narrative before your parents do. The room tilted. Voluntarily meant police stations, handcuffs, losing Kayla to the system's cold machinery, but running had run its course. What happens to our parents? Cynthia's voice was small. If proven criminal charges, at minimum temporary loss of custody. I tried to picture them in court. Dad's sneer, Mom's crocodile tears, their flawless facade cracking, but doubt lingered. They'd rehearsed this role for decades. They'll fight, Dr. Barnes warned. Gaslight, vilify you, Neil, are you ready? Kayla's nod was instant. Cynthia hesitated, then whispered, I'm done being scared. Dr. Barnes filed the CPS report that afternoon, documenting every bruise, every whip scar, every choked confession. By dusk, we stood at the campus police station with Beverly, a CPS worker whose no-nonsense tone clashed with her gentle eyes. She studied Kayla's photos like crime scenes. Emergency removal for both girls, she declared. We'll check on Lila tonight. The officers were less convinced. A mustached cop kept calling it a domestic spat, his pen tapping dismissively. We'll need to notify your parents, he said, and Kayla's nails dug into my arm. Please, I begged, voice fraying. They'll take her. Beverly cut in. Not until the judge rules. But the station's fluorescence buzzed like a swarm, and every creak of the door sent my heart jackhammering. Would they storm in? Drag Kayla back? As Beverly led the girls to a waiting car, Dr. Barnes gripped my shoulder. Stay strong. This is just the first round. I watched Kayla climb into the back seat, her eyes locking with mine. Terrified, but alive. For the first time, the secret was no longer ours alone. She has documented injuries, I insisted, my voice fraying. CPS is investigating. You can't send her back. The officer glanced at Beverly, who stepped forward, her posture steel. The girls are under emergency foster care, she said, brandishing the paperwork like a shield. Relief flooded me until the officer turned to me. What about me? I whispered. Am I? Not arrested, yet, he shrugged. But don't leave town. My phone buzzed. Mason. Mom and Dad know. They're coming, now. Beverly paled, snapping orders. The officers herded us into a back room just as tires screeched outside. Through the blinds, I watched my father's car lurch to a stop, his silhouette a storm cloud as he marched inside. My mother trailed him, already dabbing phantom tears. Where are my daughters? Dad's roar shook the walls. We've been sick with worry. In the adjacent room, Mom's performance crescendoed. Our son's always been troubled, poisoning Kayla's mind. He's the one you should... Beverly squeezed my hand. Abusers always attack the whistleblower. It means they're scared. But their lies slithered under the door, familiar and venomous. They'd spent decades perfecting this masquerade. Hours later, Beverly returned. Placement found? A foster home for the girls tonight. Kayla clutched my arm. Neil comes too. Please. Adults can't stay in foster care, Beverly said softly. He's family. Kayla's tears fell hot on my skin. I pulled her close, memorizing the weight of her head against my chest. It's temporary, I lied. We'll fix this. As Beverly led them away, an officer entered, his voice a guillotine. Your parents pressed charges, kidnapping, DA's involved. Beverly bristled. He was protecting her. The officer shrugged. Courts'll decide. For now, we need your statement. Alone in the sterile interview room, I traced the graffiti etched into the table. Fuck the police, as dread pooled in my gut. They'd win. They always did. Then I remembered. Kayla's photos, Cynthia's testimony, the paper trail bleeding their secrets. For the first time, the world was listening. I clung to that fragile hope as the clock ticked, each second a lifetime. The officer's questions were a blunt instrument, each one chipping at my resolve. Did you know removing a minor without consent is a felony? Do you understand your parents were acting out of concern? His tone dripped with faux sympathy as if reading from their script. I bit my tongue raw to keep from shouting. Then Dr. Barnes arrived like a stormbreaker, trailed by a man in a rumpled suit. Stephen, the university lawyer. Interview's over, Stephen declared, sliding a business card across the table. The officer glared but relented, slamming his notebook shut. Alone in the hall, Stephen briefed me, his voice crisp. They're pushing kidnapping charges, but we'll argue necessity. You acted to prevent imminent harm. The photos, Cynthia's testimony, it's solid. I nodded numbly, my body a hollow shell. Are they safe? I rasped. Beverly placed them with a foster family. No contact permitted. Dr. Barnes squeezed my shoulder. They're protected. Stephen warned me to vanish. No dorm, no campus haunts. Dr. Barnes broke the silence. My guest room, tonight. I didn't argue. The night was a marathon of dread. I paced the professor's spare room, its walls papered with diplomas, and checked my phone obsessively. At 3 a.m., a text blazed. Unknown number. It's Mason. Meet me, alone. Me. Why trust you? Guy. Mason. Done being their puppet. 10 a.m. Elm coffee. Morning brought Dr. Barnes' raised brow. Could be a trap, but he drove me anyway, idling his Volvo across the street. Essay. The cafe hummed with espresso machines and chatter. Mason hunched in a corner booth, shirt wrinkled, eyes bloodshot. His Rolex glinted, absurd against his unraveling facade. You look like hell, I said, sliding in. He snorted. Join the club. No pretense. What do you want? He stared into his cold latte. Saw Kayla's photos, the bruises. His throat bobbed. CPS showed me. I didn't know it was that. The admission hung between us. I wanted to hurl his hypocrisy back in his face. You knew. You just didn't care till it stained your perfect record. He flinched. I was 12 when they beat you for spilled juice. You think I slept after? A tear tracked his stubble. I was terrified. My fist clenched. Where were you when Kayla? Paralyzed. He slammed his palm on the table. Cups rattled. Every good son act was survival, but this? He shoved a USB drive across the table. Security footage. Dad whipping Cynthia last year. Audio of Mom coaching us to lie. I froze. Why? Because I'm done. His whisper cracked. I'll testify. For all of us. The drive burned my palm. For the first time, I saw not the golden child, but a ghost of the brother he might have been. They're planning to destroy you, Mason said, his voice frayed. Half the family already thinks you're unhinged. They're saying you brainwashed Kayla into lying. Of course, their oldest playbook. Gaslight, isolate, conquer. He shoved his phone across the table. Proof. The screen glowed with texts between him and our parents. Mom, spread the word Neil's unstable. Key relatives first. Dad, once we get Kayla back, she'll learn respect. Permanently. My hands trembled as I scrolled, bile rising. There's more. Mason tapped a voice memo. Mom's voice slithered out, crisp and venomous. We've spent years priming the narrative. No one will believe him now. I gaped at him. Why record this? Because I'm done being their attack dog. His laugh was brittle. I helped build their lies. Now I'll burn it down. For the first time, I saw past the golden child armor. The boy beneath was shattered, raw. Will you testify? However you need. No hesitation. I texted Stephen the evidence. He called in seconds. This flips the entire case. Meet me at the courthouse. The dominoes fell fast. The DA dropped kidnapping charges, citing compelling extenuating circumstances. CPS swarmed our parents' lives. Interviews with neighbors, teachers, even our reclusive aunt who'd once side-eyed Dad's disciplinary methods. Cynthia blossomed in foster care, texting me sunlit selfies. They let me pick my own clothes. Kayla struggled. Nightmares, panic attacks. But her text still ended with, safe, love you. A week later, Mason called, breathless. They know I leaked the texts. Dad swung at me. I'm out. When he arrived at Dr. Barnes's, his cheekbone bloomed purple. I tossed him an ice pack. Welcome to the club. He pressed it to his face, wincing. Deserve worse, for every time I looked away. The next morning, CPS extracted Lila, Cynthia's twin. All four of us, scattered, but free. None. Our parents fought dirty. Their lawyer, a shark in a $3,000 suit, painted me as a master manipulator. Relatives parroted lies. Such devoted parents, always volunteering, so involved. But the evidence was a sledgehammer. Kayla's photos, Mason's recordings, 4 siblings once fractured, now united in testimony. Judge Emerson, a woman with eyes like steel traps, let Mom's act crumble. Mrs. Mitchell, she interrupted Mom's Oscar-worthy tears. I've reviewed the whip marks, the audio of you conspiring to discredit your son, and the testimony of all your children. This court finds the allegations of abuse substantiated. The gavel fell. Custody terminated. Outside the courthouse, Mason lit a cigarette, hands shaking. What now? Kayla leaned into my side, sunlight catching her unbruised face. Now we live. The judge's voice cut through the stifling courtroom air like a blade. The injuries documented on your daughter's body are not consistent with normal discipline. They are consistent with prolonged, severe physical abuse. Mom's rehearsed tears evaporated, her face hardening into the mask we knew too well. Lips pressed to a bloodless line, eyes sharp as shards of glass. These children have been given everything, she spat, her knuckles whitening on the table. Everything. And this is how they repay us, with lies. The judge, a woman with silver-streaked hair and a gaze that could pin you to the wall, didn't flinch. Mrs. Mitchell, you've just illustrated precisely why your children fear you. The gavel fell, severing their rights to the twins with a finality that echoed in my bones. A restraining order barred them from contacting us, Mason and me, adults now, but still trembling in the shadow of their reach. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it hollowed me. Freedom, I learned, isn't a switch flipped, but a slow thaw. The months that followed were a mosaic of therapy sessions, halting confessions in sterile offices, Kayla's fists clenching when voices rose too loud, Cynthia's "I'm sorry" whispered over spilled milk. Mason rented an apartment reeking of fresh paint, its couch my sanctuary until I could face an empty room alone. We relearned mundanity. Dinners without interrogation, laughter without consequence. One evening, Thomas texted, "Dude, you need to see this," with a link to a news article. There they were. Mom's Botox-smoothed scowl, Dad's crocodile smile, mugshots from a town 3 states away. They'd reinvented themselves as pious churchgoers, martyred by a system that stole their kids, until a background check unraveled their lies. Arrested. Again. Mason read the article at my kitchen table, his coffee gone cold. "They'll never change, will they?" he murmured, tracing the pixelated rage in Dad's eyes. "No," I said. "But we did. Last weekend we gathered at Mason's apartment, all 5 of us. Pizza grease stained the coffee table. Monopoly pieces clattered as Kayla crowed over bankrupting Cynthia. The air smelled of pepperoni and forgiveness. I watched them. Mason mock-arguing over rent on Boardwalk, the twins conspiring to sneak extra cookies, and felt it. A fragile, glowing thing in my chest. Peace. Kayla flopped onto the couch beside me, her shoulder brushing mine. "What are you thinking?" "That we're going to be okay." She leaned into me, her hair smelling of citrus shampoo. "Yeah, we are." No, it wasn't perfect. Nights still clawed me awake, heart racing from phantom whip cracks. Cynthia jumped at slamming doors. Mason sometimes stared into the dark, guilt-etching lines I hadn't noticed before. But here, in this room, we were more than survivors. We were architects, rebuilding a family from rubble, brick by brick, until the walls could hold us all.